Okay, so we're recording now. All right, so welcome. Dr. Barnes, if you go to the next slide, make sure that you signed in. If you didn't get this presentation, I emailed it to you, shared it with everybody, so you should have it. Go to the next slide. Why does it say it's time to replace my lamp? Let me see if I can get rid of that. So what I thought we would do to start today is focus on some of our my frequently asked questions about the new standards. You can find all of those in the presentation. All of those are hot links, so that you go and check them out. Where do you find the standards? They're on the Georgia Standards of Excellence website. They're also on our curriculum website. If you look down at the bottom of the column for the grade bands that you teach, you'll see 3D GSE lessons. Click on that. The standards are in there, as well as the crosswalk document to help you see the changes that have been made. I can give you the elevator speech about the changes that have been made to the standards. As far as content, the what we're teaching, been minimal changes as far as the facts, figures, formulas, those kind of things. There are a few here and there, depending on your subject, but for the most part, the content has stayed the same. The big thing that's changed is the student expectation, what they're supposed to be able to do, and the experiences that they're supposed to have in your classroom. That's the big change. And we're going to dive into that. You're going to see some examples of that as we're working through the day so that you'll get a better feel for it. My expectations for you guys for next year with regards to the activities that we're doing in the classroom that are going to be completely aligned to GSE because next year's rollout is I'm looking at you to do one GSE lesson every 4.5 weeks. Okay? So we're easing our way into it. I'm going to show you some of the techniques today that will help ease you into it. I think you'll find that will make your job easier as you're working with the students on this kind of stuff. But the goal is one GSE completely aligned lesson every 4.5 weeks. Okay? That's give or take. Look, there's 4.5 weeks where you got testing, you got pep rallies, and all that kind of stuff. You don't get to it. Nobody's going to come down on you for that. Okay? Because next year is the rollout year, and y'all know how rollouts go. Okay? So just keep that in mind. The expectation is one every 4.5 weeks. I've got a lesson bank. I'm collecting new lessons every day so that you can go in and pull them and be instantly aligned and ready to go. Okay? We've got our science ambassadors who are here. We've got a whole crew of them who are not here today who are working on the lessons. They're working with the DOE, writing the frameworks and all those kind of things. So they'll be available for you to pull from. And I'm going to show you some other resources that are here as well. Okay? So it won't be hard to find that one lesson every 4.5 weeks. Okay? Textbook. No current textbooks support the GSE. That's because we're doing a hybrid of the next generation science standards. So we won't be purchasing a textbook. I don't know what we're going to be able to purchase at this point because we spent a lot of our instructional funds on Chromebooks, which I can tell you in my work across the state has made us an envy across the state. I know that there have been challenges. I know that there are all kinds of issues that go along with any kind of this stuff. I can tell you, though, that there are a lot of folks who are looking at you guys thinking that they were wishing that they were here. So just keep that in mind. I know it's difficult, and I get frustrated, too, with some of it sometimes. But just know that that's where we spend our money. That was a decision that we made. And so what we're going to look at are some of the open source textbooks. One of my favorite is ck12.org. If you are a 7th grade life science teacher, they have a version that they have put up that is ready to go. It has interactives, it has labs, it has free response questions, it has all kinds of fantastic stuff, videos, all that kind of stuff. That's the one that I spent the most time on looking at it because it is ready to go. For all the other ones, there are teachers just like you who are putting together their own versions and sharing them in the library. So you can go out and you can find whatever you want and make it your own. What I plan to do is create kind of the district version so that you guys have something that I can share so you don't have to go and create it all yourself. And then you can take and adapt it just like you do in your classroom. Because I know what y'all do. Y'all take, you take the book that you were given, and you may not teach pages 3, 4, and 5, but you teach pages 15, 17, and 19. All right? So that's what this will allow you to do because it's open source. They have really cool interactive little games that they have on there. They've got videos, links to YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff. You can print them because you can download them as a PDF. So if you've got folks that need that, if they need a large print version, you can do that too. It's really, really flexible. That's why they call them Flexbooks. Oh, no, it crashed. Crashed. You guys don't know anything about Google crashing, do you? For AP Sciences, because of the AP audit, we will have to do some updating depending on the copyright of the book that we adopted. We don't know. I haven't done a thorough evaluation of all of those to be able to figure out which ones we're going to have to do. But we're going to have to do the minimum that we need to do in order to bring us into compliance. So we may adopt in one subject, but not in another. It just depends on the copyright and the AP audit. And we'll have focused sessions on that. I'll meet with the AP teachers and we can talk about what you need there. So that's textbooks. And it's loading. Hey, there we go. All right, next one. There are loads of resources that are already being put together out there for the new standards for Georgia. It's all being done by Georgia teachers, Georgia Science Teachers Association, the DOE, and folks just interested in doing it. That document right there, and I want to encourage you all to click on that document. Will you click on that for me, the resources for 3D learning? So, yeah, you can see what I did is I set it up as a table, and you can click on the different links there, and it will drop you down to a bookmark further down in the document. So, for example, if you want some information on...
I'm mouse challenged. I need a mouse.
So if you scroll back up for me, you can just arrow. There you go. So let's say, for example, we're going to be talking a lot about phenomenon. So, Sheila, will you click on the phenomenon link there under classroom resources?
No.
So when you click on that, it takes you here so that you can go and find all kinds of resources related to phenomenon. One of them I want to point out when Sheila gets the mouse installed is the Georgia Science Teachers Association Phenomenon Bank. It's teachers just like you guys loading information in there. Yeah, there you go. So now you can see some of these. You can upload your own if you're a member of GSTA, which I highly encourage you to become a member of GSTA. But they've got all kinds of great phenomenon. They've got the connections to the standards, some possible uses, those kind of things. I'm trying to make it easy for you to implement them in the class. All right, we're going to talk more about phenomenon and why they're so important in just a second. Will you go back to the resources? There it is. All right. When you're on this one, if you click on the Return to Menu button link, it will take you back to the top so that you can see the rest of them there. Scroll down a little bit. So assessment, one of the things that a lot of people ask me about is how am I going to assess under the new standards? We're going to talk about that today. Professional learning, all of that kind of stuff is there for you. Leadership, those of you who are school leaders, department chairs, school improvement team leaders, those kind of things. There are resources that are there. I am in the process of converting this with its 750 links into a website rather than a Google Doc. And the idea is that we're sharing our work with the rest of the state and anybody else who wants it. As you guys are working on lessons and things like that, you can send them to me, and I'll vet them and I'll dump them into our lesson plan folder so that other folks can use them as well, because we're all in this together. And you may have the best lesson ever, and it's wonderful that it helps your kids, so let's make sure that we help everybody's kids. Okay? If you'll scroll back up a little bit there, you should be able to see. So sources and lessons for 3D lessons, those are there. And Sheila, if you'll click on a new tab up there at the top. Yeah, up at the top. There you go. Yeah. And type in the box there at the top. We're going to a new website. Yeah. That's okay. Type in curriculum. Yeah. And now just hit enter. I'm trying to help. Now click on science. And then scroll down to the bottom. So click on the middle school one, the green one there in the middle. And when you go into the folder there, there are lesson plans that are there ready to go. Some of them have been vetted. Some of them at this point have not. But they're based on, and I've got to do some more organization there, but they're based on the earth science, life science, physical science, because there's some crossover. Okay? But you can go in there and check out those lessons as you're planning for next year. I also encourage you, if you didn't get a copy of the argument-driven inquiry books that are over there in the back, those are great 3D lessons already ready to go. Okay? So there are tons of resources. We're just going to have to collect them and make it easy for all of us to use them. So that's my goal for next year, is that by the end of the year, you guys will have been through all of this. We'll have an opportunity to have done a bunch of lessons. We'll know which ones work, which ones don't, and then we can collect them all so that we're ready to go, so that when the assessments start counting, then we'll be on board with it and we can show growth. Next year, actually go back to my presentation. You don't have to. You can leave it open. So, yeah, about testing. Next year is hold harmless. So you won't have to show growth and all of that kind of stuff with your testing. We will be doing SGAs, but we're going to need to adapt the SGAs that we've got in order to make them fit with the GSEs. So we're going to work on some of that this summer. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. We're going to have more training on March 30th. That's Thursday. We're going to start the process of looking at scope and sequences for our core subjects. And this is where we can rearrange units and all of those kind of things. We'll start looking at the SGAs, but I don't want to get bogged down in the SGA. I want that to be something that we figure out how we're going to teach it first, and then we'll work on that assessment. Okay? So the focus of that meeting will be to start the process, because what I want to develop is the scope and sequence, and then there'll be links to lesson plans that meet those standards that you can automatically implement in your classroom and have them all ready to go so that you guys next year will have no problem adding one GSE lesson every 4.5 weeks. Okay? Also, RISA is hosting us and our science ambassadors on June 5th. It is $15, but you do get lunch. $15 is a bargain for PD. You might be able to ask your principal to kick in the $15 for you for that. It's a full day, and it'll be hands-on. So I'm hoping that you might take a look at that. And then on June 12th and 13th, depending on what level you teach, we'll be doing resource development sessions here. Full day. You can explore lesson plans. We could put them all in the scope and sequence and all that kind of stuff. I know it's in the summer. I know that you may not be able to be here. Some of you have some fantastic trips scheduled this summer, and I am envious of you. But we're going to do the best and share it with everybody so that we're all kind of working that way. So if you can be here, if you can only be here half a day, great. Okay? Please come and help out. Otherwise, it'll be me working on it by myself. Yes, ma'am.
So is the March 30th one lesson development all day?
No. It's afternoon. It's just to get us started. So it'll be after school. That one will be both together.
But that's like during, not like after 4 o'clock. You're saying like this teacher, you have to take time off of work?
No. It's after school.
Oh, okay.
On that day. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was thinking, aren't we working that day?
You are.
Okay.
You are.
Working really long that day.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm working and thinking about going to class. Okay.
Yeah. Got it. And I'm going to send you guys an email, a follow-up email with all the dates and times and all that kind of stuff with this. Okay? So, but that's where we're going with that. Next slide, please. All right. So this is the crux of what we want to do today. You'll notice, if you noticed my sign when you came in, that I have little 3D glasses up there on the sign. That's kind of be something that you're going to see a lot of because of the emphasis of what we're calling 3D learning. 3D learning comes from the Next Generation Science Standards, and it references that little symbol there in the middle. You got practices, you got content, and you got cross-cutting concepts. Those are the 3 pieces that the lessons that we do are supposed to have. Because the idea is that we've gotten unbalanced, that we've focused so much on facts, figures, formulas, content, that we're getting away from what really makes science and engineering, is that piece about finding new knowledge, sharing new knowledge, communicating, all of that kind of stuff. Okay? Bless you. So for our practices, that's what scientists and engineers do. That's the blue side. You should be able to see those. I know it's small, but that's why I shared it with you. So you can get on there and see them. Those are the kind of things that I think are what science. I don't think that the folks who put together the Next Generation Science Standards, who spent 3 years putting it together, those are what they came up with as the practices that are core to what scientists and engineers do. Those of you who have been scientists and engineer types, I think you'll recognize some of that. I also like to point out that as teachers, we do a lot of that stuff professionally as well, right? I mean, look, defining problems, asking questions. You know, I mean, if I asked what are the problems with education, could you guys define me a few problems? Yeah, I'm sure you could. Developing and using models. Don't you do that, right? Anybody doing, any kind of crazy scheduling with their kids, moving kids back and forth to get them to meet their needs, that kind of stuff? Analyzing and interpreting data. Anybody done any of that recently? I'm just wondering, because I know I have. Constructing explanations. You ever had to explain to a parent something that they didn't want to hear? And then you design a solution with them to help figure out how to make it better for the kids. The one that sticks out to me is the last one: obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. And we're going to key in on that today and the stuff that we're going to be doing. All right, so that is what scientists and engineers do. On the GPS, that's a whole separate set of standards, characteristics of science, that we may or may not get to. Right? Or maybe you do it that first week of school. The idea with the new standards is that all of this is wrapped up together. So the content, the orange piece, that is what we know. Those are the facts, the figures, the formulas, all of that kind of stuff. And then the green there is, those are our cross-cutting concepts. Those are our bigger than big ideas. Those are the ones that cut across all science. They cut across everything, if you ask me. But those are the ones that we want to focus on as our big ideas that we're talking to the students about. The idea about patterns, cause and effect. We talk about those in every single subject that we do. All right? You know, if you're doing a dichotomous key with your kids, you know, what are you doing there? You're doing a pattern, right? You know, if you're playing with your carts in physical science or physics, you know, then you're doing cause and effect. You know, scale, proportion, and quantity. That's one of the ones that I see as being very difficult for people to understand. You know, like when we talk about things like the Big Bang and evolution and those kind of things, what they struggle with is the scale of it. Because, you know, we can barely comprehend what 100 years is, which is, you know, a max human lifespan. You know, when we're talking about millions of years or even thousands of years, we can't comprehend that. Energy and matter, I mean, that flows throughout everything. All kinds of stuff like that. So the idea with our GSE lessons is that they're all wrapped up together, and the way that we wrap them up together, all of these three areas, is we come up with authentic phenomena and problems for the kids to work on. Okay? Those of you who like problem-based learning, this is going to be a nice fit for you. Okay? Go to the next slide, please. So here's some examples of the new standards. You can see from fourth to biology, you can see some of the phrasing in there that is different from what we do in our standards. Construct an argument, plan and carry out an investigation, develop a model. Those are things that the students are expected to do. Some of you who are thinking, how are they going to assess that? Well, I had dinner with the guy who evaluated all of the new milestones questions, and I asked him about what those were going to look like. No constructed response, but they'll say things like, Mary Grace has an experiment that she's doing. She set up steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. What should the next step be? And then, you know, A, B, C, and D. All right? Chris has developed a model of the solar system and would show them the model. Which one of these is a weakness of his model? You know, and one of the responses would be, well, you know, scale. That, you know, all the planets are in a line and they're all like this far from each other. You know, scale. Those are the kind of questions that we can expect the students to see. Okay, so when I'm telling you that the standards directly tie to the assessment, I want you to know that I'm being earnest about that I have it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, that there is direct correlation. I know a lot of times when you guys talk to the students after they take the milestones, that you hear a lot of things that don't really make a whole lot of sense to you, you know. And there's all kinds of factors that are involved in that. Sometimes they're field test items. The kids have been seeing for the past few years, have been seeing these field test items. So if they've been complaining to you about the test questions, that may have been part of it. Because we're not, I'll be real honest, guys, the current standards, GPS standards, are all VOK level 2, right? If your kid's got good memory, then they're probably going to be okay. But if not, you know, God bless them, right? I mean, don't you feel like that? I do. I know my daughter, she comes home and says, you know, hey, Dad, will you help me study science? And what we're doing is she's got a vocabulary list, and she's memorizing the vocabulary, which is great. I want her to know the vocabulary. Vocabulary is important. However, there's so much more to science than just the vocabulary. That's what we're trying to get at with this. That's why the shift. to the new standards. Next slide, please. Oh, go back. All right, next one. Oh, Sheila. Yeah, thank you, Sheila. Yeah. Yeah. She's got a mouse. Yeah.
Not my mouse.
There we go. That's right. All right. So the idea with the new standards is that every lesson starts with a phenomenon. It doesn't have to be something crazy, something, it doesn't have to be a black hole or anything like that. It can be some things that are small, it can be things that are big, but some phenomenon that we start with. Look at the pictures that are there. Providence Canyon, down below Columbus, right? It's a fantastic phenomenon. You go to their website, they've got a virtual reality tour of Providence Canyon, right? And you can talk about earth science, you can talk about environmental science and sustainability and all of those kind of things, but it makes it real to the kids. We're not talking about Juan standing in front of the canyon. What canyon? Well, it was a canyon. Well, who cares? Oh, but this one's in Georgia. Oh, you mean I can go see it? Yeah. That's what we're after with this, okay? Trying to tap into the kids' experiences. One of the discussions I was out at one of our schools, one of our elementary schools, and the lesson I showed them was on, and if you've been to one of the trainings before, you've seen it, was on whether it's easier or hard to walk on wet sand versus dry sand. Right? And if you've been to the beach, you know what I'm talking about. Walking down close by the water is easier to walk than, if you're in the dry sand, you're doing like that. Well, the discussion was, my kids have never been to the beach. So, is that phenomenon appropriate? Well, maybe not. Maybe we need to take the kids to the beach. Maybe we set up a beach in your classroom, take some sand, spread it out on, in a box, and let them walk on it and see what they think.
No, I think you should do a beach program.
I'm all for that.
I don't think we have a problem getting that time at all. It's easy. There's lots of there.
I notice that I'm not saying anything because I'm being recorded. The idea, though, is that we start each lesson with a phenomenon that directly correlates to what they're studying. This is why we're looking at this, because this happens out there in the world. Isn't that weird? That's what we want them to, that's what's going to engage them. That's what's going to get them excited about what we're doing. Okay? Next slide. So when you're doing a lesson, you want to start with an anchoring phenomenon. That one typically is bigger, a big one. And then you can explore smaller phenomenon that are easily accessible in your classroom. So like the tanker crush, you guys seen that video? The Mythbusters tried it in their last season. They had trouble replicating it, which I thought was funny. Obviously, you can't crush a tanker car in your classroom. I don't recommend it. Okay, but they can crush a can, a Coke can. And then they can explore pressure, volume, and temperature using marshmallows and a syringe. You stick the marshmallows in the syringe and then you pull them in the... Yeah. Do you see what we're doing there? Start with something big that's really engaging and then work on the smaller things where they can explore them. Okay? Next one. So trying to keep my balance here. Here's the life science one. This one is about a student from Douglas County. He's a football player. Got cramps at football practice. And his coach told him he needed to drink more water, more liquid. So he went home, being a good player, drank 2 gallons of Gatorade and 2 gallons of water over the next 2 hours and ended up dying from water intoxication. You think that might grab some of your kids' attention? Some of your kids might know the kid because he was in Douglas County. But the secondary phenomenon, obviously we're not going to let the kids explore that, right? Typically avoid intoxication at all in the classroom. All right, adults included. All right, but the secondary phenomenon, putting the potato in the salt water and the sugar water. Or looking the ones there. You can click on that picture there, and it'll make it a little bit bigger. But those are cheek cells in different solutions, right? So you can do that in the classroom. You see where we're getting at with the phenomenon? Now, what you're thinking is, I know right off the top of your head, you're thinking, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. I've got phenomenon that I want to use. Some of you are thinking, where do I come up with a phenomenon for these? That's where you rely on the resources that are out there that I showed you earlier to go and help you find the phenomenon. Your science ambassadors are putting together lesson plans that start with a phenomenon. All right? Sheila is going to do one for the middle school folks on sound, and her phenomenon is Big Bang Theory, the TV show. Right? Very engaging. She starts with a clip from the show with Sheldon doing Sheldon things, if you know Big Bang Theory. Next slide. So we got the phenomenon. We got the all of our 3D science that we're trying to put together, trying to bring it all together. And the way that I feel like that resonates with me with science is that practice 8, obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. As a teacher, you want your students to obtain, evaluate, and communicate information and understanding about the subjects that you're teaching them, right? The only way that that you can know what they've learned is by, doing some kind of assessment of what they've learned. It can be a test. I don't know about you, but I get tired of writing tests because I do that a lot now. What I would love for you guys to be able to do is start having conversations with your kids, and that count as your assessment. Okay, so I'm going to show you how that's going to look. So one of the things that you're tasked with is how to make your student thinking visible in your classroom. If you could see what your kids are thinking, wouldn't it be a whole lot easier to be able to direct them? So what I've got is a resource to help you do that. Next slide, please. Okay, so the books that were on the back table back there, there's a stack of Volume 1 that's over there that's left, are a series of formative assessment probes that are tied to all of the standards. And I have a Google Sheet that ties them all to, it'll tell you if you're working on this standard, go to this page in this book, and you can pull the probe down, and it's directly correlated to what you're studying. All right, I've got them for middle and high, 2 separate sheets, and I'm going to send those out to you. Okay. Remember that if you take the books, please sign for them. I don't want to go to jail for stealing books, although it's probably what I'm most likely to do. So what they look like, all the probes, what they look like are like this. They give you a scenario, and then they give you potential responses to that scenario, and then they ask you to respond what you think. So in this case, if you got it pulled up in front of you, you can see it. There's 3 friends working on pulleys, and they want to lift a block of wood. Preston says, I think we should use a small pulley. That way we don't have to pull as hard. Sarah says, I disagree. I think if we use a big pulley, we could. It would be easier to lift the wood. Aaliyah says, I don't think it matters what size pulley we use. We would have to pull the same. And then it says, which friend do you agree with? Explain your thinking. Now, you've got, if you click on the picture in there, and will you click on the picture for me? So I created a Google form with that in there, and my picture has gone away. All right, scroll down. There it is. There it is. All right, so go back up, Sheila. So put in your name. Y'all going to do this. All right, put in your name. You don't have to do it, Sheila. All right. Well, I want you to concentrate on scrolling, okay? So which friend do you most agree with and why? Three to 5 sentences. No, you don't have. Well, let's. We can talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about with the student responses. If you want to talk to them about grammar, great. I see this as an informal approach. I'm not asking them to focus on the grammar and all that kind of stuff. I'm asking them to focus on the science. So this is informal. This is just you having a virtual conversation with them. Let me do this. I'll make it easier on you. I'm going to look at my responses.
Yeah, you can find it better than I can.
Should be right at the top.
That should do the science.
Oh,
You're not showing. I thought you wanted to show.
I wanted to show that. I clicked on the wrong one.
Mm-hmm.
There it is, police size.
Spreadsheet.
Yeah, I want the spreadsheet. All right, so now I can see what your responses are, and we can start having conversations about them. Okay? Now, in my classroom, I might not throw up the entire spreadsheet up there for everybody to see because you never know what the kids are going to write, right? You know, right? But I can pull it up at my desktop, and I can say, okay, Bob. Bob says that he agrees with Sarah, and that he thinks it's because. Well, click on that, Sheila. Click on that. Bob, it's the less effort, more distance. That one right there. Yep. That he agrees with Sarah because it's less effort and more distance. Right? Okay, Bob, why do you know, let's talk a little bit more about that. What does that mean? What does less effort and more distance mean? Well, it means this. Okay, well, does anybody have a different theory? A different explanation that maybe is different from his? Do you see where this is going? We start, and you guys are all laughing. Boys are smarter than girls, so the boy's probably right.
Size doesn't matter.
Size doesn't matter. Again, the reason why I wouldn't throw up the whole thing to the classroom. But do you see how this looks and how this could start those conversations? You know, it's going to start some. The thing that I'm telling the principals about the new standards is that the students, when they walk into your classroom, the students should be talking a lot. That they should be talking to each other and they should be talking to you. That they should be having conversations. They should be sharing information. Okay, now I know sometimes we call sharing information cheating, right? But you guys, when you think about what a scientist does,
I'm just comparing my answer.
well, there's times when that's appropriate and times when it's not. But you think about what a scientist does. When a scientist comes across new information, makes a new discovery, what do? They communicate it to the rest of the world. What does the rest of the world do? Well, let me evaluate your claim. Where's your data? Right? That's what scientists do. Scientists write. They read a lot. They don't just wear a lab coat and stand in the labs. Right? And work by themselves. They work in groups. This is what we want to replicate for the kids. This is an easy way to get it started. Okay? Those of you who are, I'm not sure how this is going to work. We've got these forms. Some of our schools have been working with these Google Forms, started putting them together. All I'm doing is taking a screenshot of the PDF version of those books, putting that in Google Form, just using the same format over and over and over again, and we create them like crazy. Dump them all into a folder. Everybody's got them. Now what we're doing common assessments. Isn't that something that your principals have probably been talking to you about wanting to do? We got common assessments. Now you can look and see where the kids are. If I wanted to make this a grade, I would add a column over there, and I would put a rating. I could do 1, 2, 3, 4 if I want. I could do 1 to 10. I could do 1 to 100. A lot of people say, well, it has to go in the grade book. I'm like, well, I get you got to have grades. I get that. But people get excited about, well, if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, then I have to do math in order to convert that into a grade. I'm like, okay, if you need it to do the math, the spreadsheet will do the math for you, right? Well, but what I hear from people, and I get it. I get it, guys, because sometimes we get so deep in teaching and all of the challenges that go along with it, sometimes that answer is right there in front of you and you don't see it because you got all this other stuff that's swirling around in there. All right? It's that, in the military they call it the fog of war. That there's so much going on around you, you can't. No, I don't want to compare the classroom to a battlefield, but sometimes it is. What I'm trying to get at here with you guys is that we and I'm part of this. We've got to do a better job of supporting each other, because some of you guys are doing amazing work, and the only people that know about it are the kids in your classroom and the kids in your school. Some of you guys have solutions to problems that other people are having, but we don't know because we're not sharing it. All right? This was one that I worked on. I was like, this is great. Some of you don't like spreadsheets. Okay? I get that. Fine. Print them off. And then you can go through and check each one and all that kind of stuff with your big pile of paper and all this kind of stuff. This is all right here for me. I love this. And then I can do the math. Right? I can sort it by last name so that I can just sit there and, put my grades in. Right? You take the time to learn a new skill with, say, a spreadsheet. Yes, you have to invest that time up front, but on the back end, boy, it makes it so much easier. Okay? If you were to start in your classroom doing these little probes, I say do them like as a pre and a post. You could do it pre-unit, post-unit, and see your growth. If you start off and everybody's agreeing with Sarah, you're like, oh, I got a problem here. Then at the end of the unit, everybody's with Aaliyah. You're like, oh yeah, good job. But Reg she's still off there. Oh, sweet Reg. I got to work with her some more on that. This is your formative assessment. Now, guys, you got RTI data now, right? Think about all the data that you can generate just from this one little activity.
What's the right answer?
Oh, I don't remember the right answer.
Doesn't fully size matter? It's Sarah.
I didn't. She said. bigger pulley because it's bigger around. So that means that it's better mechanical advantage, right?
So there's an equation for that.
Yes. Mechanical advantage, force in, force out, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I'm really glad that you used the word equation.
Yeah.
Because I just have to say something. I understand what you're saying, and I think some of this I already do without putting a name to it. But at some point, the kids have to work problems on
Absolutely. Absolutely.
because they've got to get those skills.
Yep.
And they're going to have to do that in college, and we have to get them ready for that.
Absolutely.
So, when administrators come into our room and every kid in the room is working worksheets, is that still?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Because there are going to be days when they're going to have to do practice problems. They have to.
They have to balance.
They have to balance the equations. The only way you get better at them is do the practice.
Exactly.
Yes. What did I say the expectation was for this? 1 every 4.5 weeks.
Okay.
Right?
Yes. Thank you.
They're going to be
I needed that reminder.
there are going to be days when you stand up and you say, "Okay, kids, here's the content." Okay? The thing that I want you to be careful about. Let's say we're going to take a 4-year-old to the zoo. Okay? What do you tell that 4-year-old about the zoo to get them excited about going? Animals there. Animals you've never seen before. And you get to see them. You get to hear them. You get to smell them. Right? Yeah, exactly. What you don't do is you don't say, "Okay, here, Johnny, sit right here. Let's talk about, we're going to go to the zoo." When you walk into the zoo, the first thing you're going to see on the left is this animal that's orange with black stripes. That's a tiger. That tiger comes from found genus species, blah, 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 blah. Right? No! You take the kids to the zoo. You may tell them about all this cool stuff that they're going to see, right? But you don't give them a vocabulary assignment before they go to the zoo. You take them to the zoo and you show them a tiger. And they say, "Ooh, what's that?" "That's a tiger." "What's that smell?" "Well, that's a tiger's musk." Yeah, I mean, do you see what I'm saying? Then you can go back and start defining what they saw. All right? Assessment has driven us to vocabulary skills being what's driving the classroom. The research on vocabulary says that you need to do explicit vocabulary work. However, you can multiply the effects of your explicit vocabulary work by giving the kids an experience that includes sight, smell, touch, taste, all of that kind of stuff, prior to introducing the words to them. Okay? If Monday is vocabulary day, where the kids walk in, grab the textbook, have their vocabulary worksheet, and start writing down the vocabulary words, and then on Friday is vocabulary quiz day, we're not giving the kids everything that they need in order to be successful. Because they're not going to remember those words. You guys know, when you were in college, you crammed before the test, you loaded it all up in there, right? Maybe some of it's stuck, but after you walked out of the test, you feel like you vomited it back up on the test and, it wasn't in you anymore, right? That's the way the kids are doing. I hear so many people say that, I taught them that in September and they don't remember it in April. Well, yeah, because how did you teach them it in September? Well, you just loaded them up with vocabulary words and asked them to memorize it. Some of our kids, their memories don't work, right? I mean, seriously, some of you guys' memories don't work. I mean, mine. I turn 42 next week. Y'all, I'm feeling the 40s. I'm having. I know. I know y'all have been through it. Some of you are way more experienced than I am. All right? But look, things like calling names, of people that I have known, my entire life, that's a physiological memory thing. That's not just me, being dingy. Right? Your kids are having those same kind of struggles. Okay? Some of them are better at it than others. My daughter can memorize things all day long. All right? But her best friend, nope, not so much. All right? The thing is my daughter is not the one who needs to be memorizing stuff. Neither is her best friend. I want them to learn how to figure things out. I want them to have, just like you said, Kathy, the skills, know how to use the tools, right? The issue is, if I'm going to show you how to work a skill saw, here are the buttons and all that kind of stuff, but then I never let you cut a piece of wood, what's the point? Right? Showing the kids how to do the calculations without showing them where they're going to do the calculations, that's the equivalent of saying, here's how you work the skill saw, but don't touch the wood. Do you see what I'm saying? You're definitely going to have to do some direct instruction. Definitely. I don't want you leaving here thinking that you've got to throw out all of that stuff that you put together, all your graphic organizers and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is we want you to start with a phenomenon, have a conversation, air quotes, with your kids about that phenomenon. This is a conversation. Because the kids have written for you, right? Now you can see a little bit about what they're thinking. Those books tell you that if a student responds with this one, they carry this misconception. Isn't it nice to know what misconceptions your kids carry so that you can correct them? Right? The only way you get that is by having a conversation with them. I'm showing you one way to have a conversation. Easy. There are thousands of other ways to have conversations with your kids. You can sit down and talk to them. You can have them present to you. You can have them make a video explaining. They've got a Chromebook. Let them record themselves talking about it. Explaining to you what... I would rather watch, 30-second videos of a student explaining something than sit and try and decipher their handwriting. You know what I'm saying? So just think about that. I'm trying to set you guys up with resources to make it easy to try this right off the get-go, and then we can refine it as we go. Okay? The one thing I want to make sure that everyone is clear on, you're all good teachers doing good things for your kids. Yes. No. Look, the thing is, I get this a lot. When I come into schools, people see me coming, and they're like, oh, crap, he's going to tell me what I'm doing wrong again. Right? I'll tell you this story. My drama teacher in high school is the one that I credit with making me who I am today. Okay? Aside from my parents, she is the one who molded me. All right? I can hear her voice yelling at me from the back of the theater. I mean, like right now, I'm starting to sweat a little bit. She had that much influence over me. And I went to her one day and I said, why are you yelling at me like that? She said, because I think you can do better. And I said, but you're not yelling at Johnny over there. She says, I don't think he can do any better. I'm getting all that I can get out of him. And I was like, well, shoot. Okay. That's what I want you guys. I don't want you to ever feel like that when I'm showing you these things and then when I'm coming to your classroom, I want to come to your classroom. I want to help you do this stuff. I want to coach you. I don't want to direct. I'm not a director. All right? I want to coordinate. I want to coordinate resources. Okay? That's what I want to do for you. So when I come to your classroom and I'm offering you help implementing this kind of stuff, it's because I understand you may not have done this before, this way. It's new, right? I think we can get a lot out of this. I think it's going to make classroom more engaging. Your kids are going to be more involved in what they're learning about. Wouldn't it be great if all your kids were engaged in learning in your classroom? Right? We're not going to get all of them. I don't live in a fairy tale world. But what I hear now is the kids aren't learning, the kids aren't interested in what I'm teaching, but I'm still going to keep banging my head against the wall, doing it the same way. Let's try something different, okay? I think we can do it better. You guys have the tools, the skills. I'm confident in that. You just need some coaching, okay? And that's where my friends here are going to help us, all right? I think that was the last one for me. Go back to the slideshow, yeah. Thank you for going to sleep during my presentation, Dr. Barnes. Okay, so here's what I want to do now. I want to split up. We're going to go, high school folks, we're going to go upstairs with Dakima. We're going to go up to Staff Development 1. And those of you who are middle school folks, stay down here with Dr. Barnes, and you're going to get to see some about the physical science. Which lesson did you pick? Cell respiration and photosynthesis. Okay. So life science, earth science, physical science.